Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy. Back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Mutant Deku Fell for Mina? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya sat in the back seat of the car, his mind racing with thoughts. At 17, he felt he should be focusing on school, perhaps getting a job or even a girlfriend. Instead, he had discovered he possessed extraordinary powers. As he was driven to his new home, he pressed play on the tablet for what felt like the 100th time. A bald man with a white beard appeared on the screen. "Hello, Mr. Midoriya. My name is Nakajima. I understand you are going through some unexpected changes. I've been in contact with others experiencing similar issues. If you would like my help, have one of your parents input your phone number, and I will contact you personally." After some time, Mr. Nakajima reached out to Izuku and his parents, explaining everything. His parents felt relieved to find help for their son. They agreed that Izuku would be picked up the next day in the early afternoon. However, as he got further away from his family, homesickness began to settle in. When he arrived at his new home, he was struck by its size. It was a single-story house with 6 bedrooms, each equipped with a shower and toilet, a kitchen, a lounge area, a pool, a gym, and an outdoor basketball court where 5 teenagers were playing. 3 of them appeared relatively normal, one with red hair, another with black hair, and a third with blonde hair. However, 2 others stood out. One boy had a bird-like head, and a girl had pink hair and skin. The driver turned to Izuku. "Those are the other 5 teenagers. The redhead is Ijiro, the boy with the bird head is Fumikage, the black-haired girl is Momo, the blonde is Himiko, and the pink-haired girl is Mina. I'm sure they'll be happy to introduce themselves, but in the meantime, let me show you to your room." The 5 teens waved, but Izuku kept his head down, preferring to remain alone for the moment. After being shown to his room, he grabbed his bag from the driver and managed to say goodbye. Once the driver left, Izuku dropped his bag and sat on the bed, losing track of time. A knock at the door broke his trance, but instead of answering, he buried his face in his hands. The door opened slightly, and Ijiro peeked in. "Hey, dinner is ready," he said before stepping away and shutting the door. Izuku could hear Ijiro talking to one of the girls outside. "He's just sitting there. I'm not really good at pep talks or anything," he said. "Did you even sit down with him?" the girl replied. Footsteps approached, and Izuku thought, "Just go away." 2 of the teens settled down next to him. After a few moments, one of them spoke up. "I'm Mina. What's your name?" she asked gently. Izuku remained silent but eventually muttered, "Izuku." "Well, Izuku, I'll be right back with something just for you," Mina said before getting up and leaving. Izuku thought to himself that he hoped she wouldn't return, wishing she had at least closed the door. Fumikage spoke up. "How is he?" "I think he's feeling homesick, so I thought this might help," Mina replied. "You're bringing him dinner? That's really sweet of you," one of the girls chimed in. Mina returned with a bowl of food, but the enticing aroma didn't draw Izuku's attention. Instead, she placed the bowl on a nearby table and sat down on the bed beside him. He remained slumped, his face still hidden in his hands. Mina spoke softly. "I know I'm a stranger, but if you feel comfortable, you can talk to me about what's going on. I won't judge." Izuku sensed her sincerity. Maybe sharing his feelings about being homesick wouldn't hurt. The reality of moving to a new home and being away from his family and friends felt overwhelming. He finally removed his hands from his face and looked up, tears streaming down his cheeks. Embarrassment washed over him. "Great, now I feel like an idiot," he thought. "It's okay to cry. We all have those days. Just let it out," Mina said, remaining by his side. Feeling a surge of courage, Izuku decided to confide in her. He wiped his face but still avoided eye contact as he spoke, his voice trembling. "I'm feeling homesick." Mina nodded in understanding, and as he looked up, he noticed her striking yellow eyes and the 2 small horns on her head. He continued to share his feelings, and as he spoke, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Mina listened attentively, smiling gently. "I'd like to give you a hug. Would you like that?" she asked, unsure if he would welcome the gesture. Izuku hesitated but eventually nodded. Mina moved closer and wrapped her arms around him. He returned the hug, feeling comforted by her warmth. After a moment, she released him and stood up, holding the bowl of now cold food. "I'll get you some freshly made dinner. Take your time, okay?" she said reassuringly. "No, it's fine. I'll be out in a minute," Izuku replied, calling out just before she left. "Mina. Thank you. I needed that," he said, managing a small smile. "I was happy to help." "Feel free to talk to me anytime," she replied with a warm smile before closing the door behind her. Izuku sat in silence, but he felt a little lighter, knowing he had made a connection. Izuku could hear voices outside his room. "Is he feeling better?" Ijiro and Fumikage asked. "Like all of us, he just needs some time for things to settle down," Mina replied. He considered staying in his room, but his stomach rumbled, prompting him to get up, wash his face, and open his door. Ijiro and Fumikage nodded at him as they finished washing up, while Mina and the other girls smiled warmly. As he stepped out, Izuku began to notice the colors of their eyes. Ijiro's and Fumikage's were red, Momo's were black, and Himiko's, which looked ash blonde at first glance, were yellow. Mina got up and retrieved a bowl from the microwave, handing it to Izuku. He smiled at her and took a seat. The others introduced themselves, and Izuku followed suit. They allowed him to eat in peace, and he started to feel much better. After finishing as he washed his bowl, Ijiro approached him, speaking quietly so only he and Fumikage could hear. "So, Izuku, what do you think? Those three girls are quite the lookers, aren't they?" Fumikage sighed. "Really, Ijiro? That's what you're thinking about?" Ijiro shrugged, a smirk on his face. "I mean, you've got to admit it." Izuku chose not to respond to the question. Eventually, the six of them decided to go to bed early, planning to discuss everything in the morning. However, Izuku found it hard to sleep. A soft knock on his door broke the silence. He opened it to find Fumikage standing there with a duffel bag. "Hey, Izuku." Ijiro's being unhelpful. "Do you want to check out the gym?" he asked quietly. Izuku nodded. Feeling better, he was eager to explore. He quickly packed some gym clothes, and they began walking, unaware that Momo was watching them from her door. "Ahem. Where are you boys off to?" she asked, causing them to turn and lower their heads. Momo giggled. "Are you guys going to the gym or not?" She grabbed a bag from her room. "Yes, we are," Mina exclaimed, appearing behind them and making them jump. "Himiko wants to sleep though," she added. The four of them made their way to the gym. "Hey, are we not going to talk about the obvious reason we're here?" Izuku asked. "You mean how the six of us are mutants or whatever?" Momo replied. Izuku nodded, and Mina gasped in excitement. "We can discuss our abilities or powers or whatever they're called," she said, trying to calm herself down. The others nodded in agreement. Mina pointed at Momo. "You first." Momo shrugged. "Sure. Can extend my limbs and harden my skin, so it's like punching concrete." "And you," Mina said, pointing at Izuku. "Oh, I can control and manipulate shadows, making them come alive, and I'm having trouble with my second power, teleportation," Izuku admitted. Mina's finger moved to Fumikage. "What about you?" "I can control and talk to birds," he said, surprising the others. "That was meant to be a joke. My actual powers are that my body can emit a sonar-like ping, alerting me to whatever's in my surroundings. My second power is a quick healing factor, which has come in handy." Mina bounced with excitement. "Oh, my turn. I can camouflage my body to blend in, and I can walk through solid objects." She spoke quickly, but the others understood her. Then she added, "And I also have laser vision." "Just kidding." Fumikage turned to Izuku. "If you don't mind me asking, how are you having trouble with teleportation?" "Oh, most of the time I can't control where I'll end up," Izuku replied. "Do it. Please." Mina shouted awkwardly. "Mina!" Momo snapped. Mina rolled her eyes. "Fine, Uksak." "Ahem, Izuku, pretty please," she asked with a grin. Izuku looked at Fumikage, who shrugged. "Sorry, I'm with Mina on this one." Momo placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. If you don't want to, that's fine, she said with a smile. Well, actually, you three might be able to help, so here goes, Izuku said as a portal appeared behind him and he vanished. Silence fell until Izuku's voice echoed from above. Firstly, as you can see, I can't control where I end up. Second, can I get some help down, please? Use another portal or just jump? Mina called out. What, no? Izuku replied. Mina turned to Momo and raised an eyebrow. Can you reach him, Momo? She asked, then turned back to Izuku. Just think of this as an extreme trust fall. Just more fall than trust. You're loving this, aren't you? Izuku yelled back, but Mina just giggled. Momo extended her arms to catch Izuku and bring him down safely. The four of them sparred for a while before heading back to bed, eagerly anticipating what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, Izuku lay in bed, dreading a topic he didn't want to bring up with the others, his difficulty with reading. It sounded like they were making breakfast when someone knocked on his door. He opened it to find Fumikage standing there. Good morning, Izuku. How do you like your eggs? He asked. Ijiro snickered, and Himiko smiled. Fumikage added, well, at least when I poop normally instead of crapping out eggs. Everyone struggled to keep a straight face, even Fumikage. It doesn't matter. Anyway is good. Thanks, Fumikage, Izuku replied. Breakfast consisted of bacon, eggs, and toast, prepared by Ijiro and Himiko. They all sat down, 3 on each side, Fumikage, Izuku, and Himiko on one side, and Ijiro, Mina, and Momo on the other. Between mouthfuls of food, Mina spoke up. So, Himiko, what are your powers? Himiko and Ijiro nodded. Himiko went first, and Izuku and Fumikage soon realized that she appeared to be mute. She attempted to use sign language but shook her head, running to her room and returning with a pencil and paper. After a moment, she finished writing and showed them her note. Hello, my name is Himiko Toga. I'm mute, and I could teach everyone sign language if you want. I have 2 powers. First, my eyes change from yellow to silver to allow me to see in infrared vision. My other power allows me to control blood, transforming it into weapons and manipulating the blood within a person. Izuku heard Mina and Momo reading aloud to themselves. Ijiro proudly shared, my first power lets me change my limbs into weapons, and my second power is basically super speed. I didn't use it yesterday, but that's okay. The other 4 explained their powers to Ijiro and Himiko. Momo was the first to finish and cleaned up. She walked behind Izuku and Fumikage, placing a hand on their shoulders. There's a roster on the fridge. If either of you needs anything, just let me know, she said with a smile. Fumikage and Izuku exchanged glances before standing up to examine the roster. Izuku felt frustrated as he could barely make out his name among the others. Fumikage and Mina noticed his expression. Leaning in, Fumikage asked quietly, Izuku, are you having trouble with something? Embarrassment and anger bubbled up in Izuku, and he clenched his fists. Mina, standing beside him, spoke softly, Izuku, just take your time. He interrupted, I know you won't judge, that you're free to talk and all that. Mina continued, Izuku, Fumikage and I can help. We all can, but if you prefer just us 2, that's fine. Izuku sighed heavily, reluctant to burden them since they had only just met. The 6 of us will help each other with our powers, so we might as well help each other with other things too, Fumikage said, and Izuku thought he saw a hint of a smile. It's just that I can't. Izuku struggled to express himself, but the words wouldn't come. Mina and I will help. You can ask us, or we'll remind you when you're working on something, Fumikage reassured him, as if they understood. Izuku lowered his head, wishing to retreat to his room. An arm draped over him, and Mina's voice broke through. The offer still stands if you want to talk. You're on dinner duty tonight, but Fumikage and I will happily help, okay? Fumikage patted him on the back, and Izuku wrapped his arms around both Fumikage and Mina. Thanks. I really appreciate it, he said. They nodded in response, and then, to everyone's surprise, the doorbell rang. Momo opened the door, her jaw dropping in surprise at the sight of Mr. Nakajima. He stood at a modest height of 4'6", even shorter than Momo, who was 5 foot. He bowed slightly. Miss Yaoyorozu, I thought I'd drop by. Momo gestured for him to come in. He carried a walking stick in his left hand and wore a gray coat and breathes. He waved to everyone. Miss Ishido, Mr. Midoriya, Mr. Tokoyami, Mr. Kirishima, and Miss Toga, how are you all? He appeared very cheerful. They each responded in kind. Mr. Nakajima then pulled out a piece of paper. This is the reason you are all here. I'll read it out and then put it somewhere you can all read whenever you like. Ahem. For the last 15 years, I have been investigating a curious case of people developing powers. Most of the world is afraid, which is why the 6 of you have been brought here, to better understand what is happening and to help control your newfound powers. He continued after finishing the letter, there are people in the world who want to make weapons from mutants. It's not just you 6, there are more like you out there. But I'm sure people can understand that we aren't meant to be feared. In time, hopefully. He explained that they could choose to go home if they wanted, it was entirely up to them. Izuku pondered this, reflecting on Mr. Nakajima's words about understanding and controlling their powers. He lowered his head, feeling confused and frustrated. So that is that, and if anyone would like to talk, my number is at the bottom of the letter. Plus, there's another number for a service I'm testing out. I'll have 2 drivers on call all day, every day. So today, if anyone wants, my drivers will be waiting for a few hours to take you into the city. Mr. Nakajima announced, noticing Izuku's downcast expression but choosing not to comment. The other 5 seemed interested in going to the city, while Fumikage and Mina noticed Izuku still had his head down. Before they left, Himiko wanted to teach them some basic sign language. The others picked it up quickly, and Himiko beamed with pride. They had a minibus waiting for them, so they hurriedly changed out of their pajamas. Just as Izuku finished getting ready, someone knocked on his door. It was Mina, looking a bit concerned. Hey Izuku. I was wondering if you could help me with something? Sure, he replied, thinking this was unusual. Okay, thanks. Since Fumikage and I are helping you, I need some help of my own. In crowded areas, I start to feel panicked, especially if I end up in the middle of them. Would it be alright if you could keep an eye on me? Maybe even hold my hand? If you... She looked down, and Izuku placed a hand on her shoulder. I'd be happy to help. You're helping me after all. Besides, it would be awkward if I was holding Fumikage, he said, causing Mina to chuckle. Thanks, Izuku, she smiled as she walked away. Himiko looked over, smiled and signed to him, good job. She mimicked blowing a kiss and then moved her right hand down flat into her left palm, knocking on the back of her left hand twice. Fumikage saw Himiko's gesture and repeated the signs, pointing to Izuku, who felt a little embarrassed. She said good job, Fumikage translated, and Himiko nodded in agreement. They all boarded the minibus to travel to the city, which was about a 30-minute ride away. Though, city seemed like an understatement, as they could easily see the sprawling metropolis in the distance. The driver instructed them to meet her back at the drop-off spot in about 4 hours before saying her goodbyes. Sue, what are we actually doing here? Ajiro was the first to speak. It's almost lunchtime, so? Momo replied. Arcade it is. Ajiro yelled, ready to run off, but Fumikage grabbed him. We'll stick together, he insisted. However, Izuku had started to walk off into an alleyway, seemingly drawn by something. Momo caught a glance and called out, Izuku, but he didn't respond. Fumikage squatted down and punched the ground, sending out a sonar ping. He saw Izuku walking and something else waiting for him. Ajiro, head down there, take a right then a left, got it? Fumikage pointed to the alleyway. Ajiro nodded and took off at high speed. He soon spotted a tall, robed figure latched to the wall, about to launch itself at Izuku. Ajiro ran along the wall and transformed his arm into a sledgehammer, striking the figure in the face. The figure reeled back, then snapped forward to look at Ajiro. Realizing it was staring at him, Ajiro muttered, "Oh no!" The figure dropped to the ground, and Ajiro felt a strange sensation, as if he were in a trance. Suddenly, Mina's arms appeared through the wall, grabbing the figure in a chokehold. Izuku fell to the ground, seemingly breaking out of his trance. The robed figure struggled to break free but received a punch from Momo's extended arm. Izuku raised an arm and moved his own shadow, wrapping it around the figure's throat. "Izuku, what are you doing?" Fumikage yelled, but Izuku was consumed by his anger. The figure let out an ear-piercing scream, causing everyone to cover their ears, and seized the opportunity to escape. Himiko, using her infrared vision, shook her head as the figure vanished. She ran over to Izuku and hugged him tightly. Though she couldn't speak, he could feel her concern. "I'm sorry, everyone, but I think we'll have to cut our day out short," Izuku said, his body trembling as he tried to process what had just happened. He couldn't shake the feeling that he recognized the figure from somewhere. With their city trip cut short, there were still hours until dinner time. Izuku went straight to his room, searching for a book he had packed that might help him understand the possible villain from earlier. He didn't show it, but he was surprised at how the others had helped him, and he smiled to himself at the thought. He found the book filled with photos and information about old heroes from many years ago, heroes that the world had seemingly forgotten. He moved to his table, sat down, and picked up a pencil, trying to do something, anything. "What are you doing?" Mina asked, appearing out of nowhere and startling Izuku, who almost dropped the book. "I'm looking." The person from today was a former hero, he said, doing his best to hide his frustration at his reading difficulties, though he was teaching himself without wanting Mina and Fumikage to know. Mina leaned over to look at his work. "Izuku, it's really cool that you're looking into this. But don't push yourself, okay?" "Why, sure, I won't," he replied. "Good, have fun," she said, ruffling his hair as she walked off with a giggle. Momo had contacted Mr. Nakajima to explain what had happened, and he promised to come by tomorrow to help. Izuku watched Mina leave, quietly saying to himself, "Maybe Ijiro's right, she does seem really nice." He leaned back in his chair and almost fell over, using his shadow power to bring himself upright, relieved that no one had noticed. About 30 minutes later, he decided to take a break when Ijiro knocked on his door, wearing just board shorts. "Hey Izuku, you busy? We're going to the pool." "You in?" he asked excitedly. Sure, I'll get changed now," Izuku replied. As they neared the pool, Ijiro spoke again. "I can't wait. The three of them are." He stopped short when he saw the three girls in one-piece swimsuits, his hopes of seeing something else dashed. He slumped his shoulders, looking deflated. Izuku put his bag down and hopped into the pool, which was about the size of a small public pool. Fumikage waved as he saw Izuku and Ijiro. Ijiro, with a smirk on his face, used his super speed to dash in and out of the water in seconds, heading into the male changing rooms. "That was weird," Izuku muttered to himself. He was about to move when he noticed, turning red in the face, that Ijiro had taken his shorts. He faced the wall, but then he felt something on his right shoulder and turned to see a pink hand. "What are you doing hugging the wall? Come on, have some fun," Mina said with a smile. I'm fine. I'll stay here for a bit, I think," he replied. Mina held his shoulder and began to pull him. Wait," he said, desperately wanting to stay still. "But, what's up?" "Look, it'll be fine. The water is only deep at the other end. Besides, you can grab onto Momo if you want," she said with a wink. Izuku caught a glimpse of Ijiro at the entrance to the changing rooms, proudly waving Izuku's shorts in the air. "Ijiro took my shorts," Izuku exclaimed, his face turning even redder. Mina looked confused. "And? That's no big deal," she said. "My shorts that I was wearing." "In the pool," he clarified, feeling more embarrassed. "What's so bad?" Mina suddenly understood, covering her face with her hands and turning a light shade of purple. "What's up, guys?" Momo asked as she approached with Himiko. Mina instantly spun around, spreading her arms to shield Izuku, her face becoming even more flushed. Momo smirked at the scene, while Mina began to stutter, causing Himiko to raise an eyebrow. "Where is that guy?" Mina thought to herself, just as Ijiro made things awkward by letting Izuku's shorts float slowly by. Momo and Himiko both turned red, and Mina quickly grabbed the shorts, tossing them back to Izuku, who awkwardly put them on. "I can move now," he said, slowly turning around, his embarrassment evident as he couldn't bring himself to look up. Mina turned to Ijiro, her expression shifting from a smirk to one of horror as she noticed the anger in her eyes. She pointed at him and exclaimed, "You're not getting any dinner. In fact, I should kick you right now." Ijiro considered yelling back, "Catch me first," but thought better of it. Mina noticed how embarrassed Izuku was, and as she glanced at Momo and Himiko, Izuku took the opportunity to grab his bag, open a portal, and disappear. Everyone turned their attention to Ijiro, whose skin was now a light purple, reflecting his anger rather than embarrassment. Despite his emotions being tested, Izuku managed to control where he ended up, even if he couldn't dictate how far he could go. He teleported himself into the rafters of the gym. If the roof had been flat, he would have chosen that instead. He stayed there for a few minutes, hearing the others calling his name, but it seemed Ijiro had spotted him. Izuku managed to teleport down. He opened a portal behind Ijiro and began walking toward him, clenching his fist. Ijiro was prepared to let Izuku hit him. He felt he deserved it. Yet he felt uneasy for some reason. The others soon arrived, and Momo extended her arms to grab Ijiro, but he was stuck. She soon realized that Izuku had used his shadow to bind Ijiro. Mina rushed toward Izuku, but he pushed her aside. "Izuku, think about what you're doing," called out Fumikichi. Ijiro was beginning to break down in tears when Mina hugged Izuku from behind, reminding him, "It's okay to cry, we all have those days. Just let it out." Izuku felt his own tears trickling down as he closed the portal and released his shadow's grip on Ijiro. Ijiro ran to Izuku and hugged him tightly. "I'm sorry, okay? I deserve everything that's about to happen. But just do it," he said, but Izuku's response surprised everyone, especially Ijiro. "I'm the one who should be sorry. I let my anger out. I could have seriously hurt you. I was just reminded so much of my early high school days. I let it get to me." Mina moved around to hug them both. "I'm sorry too, Ijiro. I got caught up in the moment," she said. The other two girls joined in for a group hug. Momo looked at Fumikichi, who was just standing there. "Fumikichi, group hug," she called. He walked over and awkwardly patted Izuku and Ijiro on their heads, but Momo pulled him in as well. Ijiro felt bad and foolish. "I'll make dinner tonight, Izuku, so don't worry," he said, wiping his tears. "And no, I'll prepare dinner tonight. Mina and Fumikichi said one of them will help, so I'll make extra for you, Ijiro," Izuku replied, now wiping his own tears. Though he promised to make extra for Ijiro, Izuku had no idea what to prepare for dinner. Meanwhile, in the city, in the same alleyway where the 6 teens had been earlier, an 8-foot-tall figure that had tried to attack Izuku was being cornered by 2 people, a male, 6'2", with black hair and a beard, and light gray eyes, and a female, 5'5", with blonde hair and light blue eyes. The male spoke to the towering figure. It was simple: capture the green-haired child and bring him back. "Why was that so hard? My daughter even trained you." His tone was annoyed but surprisingly calm. The 8-foot-tall figure raised his arms in protest when the female interjected, "No, you don't get a say. My father gave you so many chances and still, you couldn't get the job done." Her words were filled with anger. "Well said, but I've been thinking. Preparations are almost complete, so I think it may be time to step out of the shadows and into the fire. Don't you think so, daughter?" he said, maintaining his calm tone. His daughter nodded with a smile. "Good. I'll let you take care of things here. After it's done, don't draw too much attention to yourself, will you?" he instructed as he began to walk away. "In the street, no, but here." "So much fun," she replied, her mouth transforming from a human's to that of a monster, rows of teeth resembling a shark's as she pounced too quickly for the 8-foot-tall figure to react, silencing his muffled screams. Time flew by as Fumikichi helped Izuku prepare dinner. They eventually decided on a massive pasta bowl with minced meat. After they had all eaten and cleaned up, they decided to play a get-to-know-you dare game by placing questions and tasks in a hat, avoiding anything too personal. They spun a bottle to determine who would go next, as no one wanted to play that game. Fumikichi and Mina sat on either side of Izuku, ready to assist him with reading. Momo went first, her eyes widening at the question. I'm not even sure how to answer or who wrote this," she said, glancing at Fumikage and then Ijiro. Okay, the question is, how do you feed your chicks? Fumikage or Ijiro, did either of you? She looked at them again, confused. Fumikage raised his hand and nodded, causing Momo to giggle. Strange sense of humor he's got, she thought before answering, chicken food, obviously. The bottle was spun again, landing on Himiko. Her question was, if you could have any color hair, what would it be? She answered in sign language, I wouldn't change a thing. The bottle spun once more, pointing at Izuku. Before he grabbed a question, he spoke up, before I get one, I should tell you something personal. I have trouble reading, so it might take me a while to understand. He felt himself turning red but felt better for sharing. Ijiro, Momo, and Himiko nodded, each giving him a reassuring smile. Izuku picked a question but struggled to figure out what it said. I'll read it for you if you'd like, Fumikage offered. Izuku handed over the question, and Fumikage read it aloud. It says, put an arm around the nearest person, that's it. Oh, sorry. I thought it would be a nice gesture or something. Momo said, her cheeks flushing slightly. Mina put an arm around Izuku. There, it's done, she said, casually inching closer to him. Momo noticed the movement and smiled a little. Ijiro was the next person the bottle pointed at, and he was surprised by the question, okay, without using your hands, make a cup of coffee? He raised his eyebrows as he realized it was Himiko's question. They continued playing for a while, and eventually, everyone had a turn. As they were finishing up, Mina noticed she had her arm around Izuku the entire time. She quickly moved it away, and Izuku, noticing, spoke quietly, his cheeks turning red. I was meant to put my arm around you, the nearest person. Mina playfully nudged him. It wasn't a problem. Besides, I thought you didn't feel like doing so, with maybe what happened and all, she replied softly, smiling at him. But Izuku just stared ahead. I guess I'm still thinking about today in the city, then with Ijiro. I know he's sorry and I'm sorry too, but I still feel bad. It's the first time I've done anything like that. Izuku began to slump down but then straightened up and put an arm around Mina, who blushed slightly. The others noticed but remained silent. Fumikage was the first to break the silence. It's only 8:40, so, what do we do now? He was considering going to bed early, but he still felt energetic. Well, we could play basketball, boys versus girls, of course, Ijiro suggested. The three girls exchanged glances. Looking for a rematch, are we? Momo asked. Izuku wasn't here for the last game, and we still won't use our powers. Oh, and it's on! Ijiro exclaimed, jumping up and pumping his fists. They played 2 games of basketball, with each team winning. One before heading to bed. The following day, Mr. Nakajima arrived around midday, looking more concerned than happy as he entered. The driver who accompanied him made coffee for everyone. The 6 teens gathered around the table, filled with both eagerness and worry about what Mr. Nakajima might say. After a heavy sigh, he finally spoke. About what happened yesterday, I'm afraid it's taken a grave turn. The person who went after Mr. Midoriya has been killed. The body was found in an alleyway, part of the jugular missing, as if from an animal attack. That's really all we could find out. The local police force said they'll contact me if anything changes. So please, if any of you go into the city, just be careful. His expression conveyed his worry. If Izuku's attacker could be dispatched so easily, they could all be in deep trouble. As Mr. Nakajima prepared to leave, he added, I would like you all to train. Train your minds and your powers, both individually and together. Who knows what else could happen? I'll have 2 people I trust dearly come to stay to help. I wish you all the best of luck. Goodbye for now. Before he left, his driver placed a cardboard box on the kitchen countertop, filled with information and quizzes about old mutants. Once Mr. Nakajima was gone, the 6 of them reflected on what they had just heard. We'll definitely stick together as a group or pair up, Fumikage said after a moment of silence, and the others nodded in agreement. We can also study together in groups or pairs, Momo suggested, much to the annoyance of everyone except Izuku. They decided to spend some time studying, with the boys studying alone and the girls studying together. No. No. Nope. Nope. Why do we have to study now? Mina complained, growing frustrated. The three girls were in Momo's room, each having grabbed a quiz to complete. Izuku, meanwhile, had been secretly teaching himself to read and write, making slow but steady progress. For the quiz, he found an audio version, but his writing practice wasn't part of it. He had dedicated a small section of his notebook to write down everyone's names, even if it looked a bit like scribble to him. He felt pleased with his effort. Eventually, the three girls finished the quiz, despite Mina's constant complaints. I wonder how the others are doing, she asked, looking around. A mischievous grin spread across her face as she stuck her hand through the wall, blending into it completely. Even Himiko, using her infrared vision, couldn't see her. Mina peeked into the next room and spotted Izuku with his head down, headphones in, focused on writing. She couldn't help but smile, noticing his notebook was open and that he had written down everyone's names. She felt a twinge of guilt for seeing it, knowing he probably wanted to keep it a secret for now. As she pulled back through the wall, she noticed that Momo and Himiko had left. She exited the room through the door and saw Fumikage was also out. Moments later, Ijiro burst out of his room, yelling, "Finally, why stupid paper?" Ijiro! Momo hissed, realizing everyone else was still inside. Sorry, he replied sheepishly. Himiko then made everyone coffee, and Momo knocked on Izuku's door. A muffled "yeah" came in response. Momo opened the door. Hey Izuku, how's it going? She asked with a smile. Oh, hey Momo, I think I'm finished, he replied, though he looked tired. As he stood up, he wobbled slightly but managed to sit back down on his bed. Momo walked over and gave him a hug. Get some rest, you did well. We'll make you a drink once you get up, okay? She said. Thanks, Momo, Izuku called out as she headed for the door. She smiled and waved before shutting it behind her. Turning to the others, she said, it's understandable that it took a toll on him, both physically and mentally, but he just needs some rest. The others nodded in agreement. I wanted to get some training in, but I don't want Izuku to miss out, Fumikage mentioned. Izuku ended up sleeping for about an hour. When he finally woke up, he still felt groggy and stepped out of his room, unaware that Mina, Momo, and Fumikage were nearby. Ijiro had gone back to his room to study a little, while Himiko had retreated to her own room for some rest. Izuku slowly started making himself a coffee when Mina's cheerful voice broke the morning silence. Feeling better, sleepyhead? She teased, causing Izuku to jump as he adjusted to his surroundings. Yes, he stammered, a faint blush creeping onto his cheeks. Didn't mean to spook you, just checking on ya. Mina added with a playful tone. Soon after, the doorbell rang. Fumikage opened the door to find two people standing outside, an RV parked nearby. One was a tall, muscular man with a black mohawk and brown eyes, while the other was a woman with short black hair and hazel eyes. The man stepped forward with a grin. We're friends of Mr. Nakajima. I'm Guston, and this is my wife, Hullen. We'll be staying in our RV, but more importantly, we'll be training you all, your minds and your powers. So let's head to the gym. The group of 8 made their way to the gym, where Guston held a clipboard. First things first, if you think my training is tough, my wife will take it up a notch. This first exercise will be partner-based. Izuku and Fumikage, Mina and Momo, Ijiro and Himiko. This will be combat training, but no powers allowed. Hullen will supervise, and trust me, she won't hesitate to enforce the rules. And please, no backtalk, alright? Good, let's begin. He settled down on a bleacher. The 6 teens started sparring. Izuku and Himiko were still getting the hang of things, but Hullen was determined to help them improve. After 20 minutes, Hullen called out, All right, Izuku, Ijiro, and Momo, move to the left and change partners. You can now use your powers. Her voice boomed through the gym. Izuku found himself paired with Mina, Ijiro with Fumikage, and Momo with Himiko. Hullen noticed Mina smiling as Izuku approached her. Mina, what are you smiling at? This is a fight, not a dance. Hullen shouted. Sorry, Mina replied, looking away, her cheeks turning a light shade of pink. Hullen then sat next to Guston as the teens resumed sparring. She sighed. I know you want to push them, but let them enjoy themselves. Yes, their powers are new, but they're still getting to know each other. Guston nodded. I understand. I just want to prepare them too. At least they have older mentors to look up to and guide them, he said quietly. The teens continued training for another 20 minutes before Hullen had them swim for 15 minutes. Exhausted, they slowly made their way back to their rooms. Who's on dinner tonight? I'll give you lots of money if you make the greasiest food possible. Ijiro exclaimed, dragging his feet, ready to collapse. Maybe, Momo said, raising her hand. They glanced at the clock and realized it was only 2:15 p.m., still hours until dinner. They all sighed in unison. We'll let you all have the night off, Hullen called, lifting their spirits a bit. They decided to rest, sleeping for just under 2 hours, except for Izuku, who only managed 30 minutes before heading back to the gym. I need to do this, I've got to get stronger, he thought as he practiced his teleportation, slowly getting the hang of it. By the time he finished, sweat dripped from him, and his shirt was soaked. He jumped slightly when he heard clapping and turned to see Fumikage, Momo, Ijiro, and Himiko sitting on the bleachers, not clapping. Mina then appeared a few meters in front of him, clapping enthusiastically. She skipped toward him, hands behind her back, flicked his forehead, and tilted her head with a grin. Trying to impress the ladies, are we? Well. Izuku stuttered, his face turning red. Mina pouted and winked at him before skipping off. Yeah, she's quirky but kind of cute. Wait, what? He thought, feeling even more flustered. He sighed and attempted to teleport to his room, which almost worked. I wonder what Momo and Himiko think about him, Mina mused, smiling as she returned to the others. Guston and Hullen had set up a TV in the lounge area, with a note that read, We thought it was the least we could do to help you all relax and have fun. Guston. The teens exchanged glances, unsure of what to think. Anyone bring movies or a game console? Momo asked, but everyone shook their heads. Mina pulled the note off the TV, grabbed the remote, and started flipping through channels. She let out a squeal when she found a show about to start, All Stars Matrix, her favorite mecha anime. The four of them settled in while Momo and Himiko shrugged, confused. Okay, so it starts at around 4:30-ish and it's Friday, so only a week's wait until the new episode. Mina exclaimed, practically glowing with excitement. The others nodded in agreement. Mina dashed to her room and returned with a box set of All Stars Matrix, which included seasons 1 to 3, 3 movies, and 2 OVAs. Momo looked at her, bewildered. You brought the box set of that show with you? Mina beamed. Are you kidding me? Of course I did. It's the best mecha anime ever, she replied, barely containing her enthusiasm. I haven't seen the OVAs. Are they good? Izuku asked, immediately regretting it. Mina grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him excitedly. Yes, they are amazing. Izu, we are watching them sometime, she declared, calming down a bit. Izuku turned a deeper shade of red as he stammered, To tea together? Mina rolled her eyes playfully. Well how else would you watch the best mecha anime ever? See, Momo, I stopped myself from yelling that time, she said with a giggle, releasing his shoulders. Izuku smiled but felt nervous. A couple of hours later, Momo and Mina made dinner. During the meal, Izuku couldn't shake the thought that he might be developing feelings for Mina, but he doubted she felt the same way. He would have to wait for their upcoming anime night to see how things would unfold. The next few days passed in a blur, primarily due to the intense training sessions led by Guston and Hullen. On Tuesday morning, the 6 teens felt their bodies aching, though they were grateful for the progress they were making. As Izuku thought about Mina's plan to watch All Stars Matrix, he felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He hoped it wouldn't just be the two of them, but part of him secretly wished it would be, so he could learn more about her. Knock knock. All right, I'm getting up. Izuku called out. He opened the door to find Himiko, who communicated using sign language. Still a bit sleepy, he asked. You mean breakfast? She nodded. After getting dressed, he and Himiko made coffee to wake themselves up, then worked on preparing breakfast together. Once they finished, Himiko caught Izuku's attention and signed, Do you like Mina? Confused, he didn't quite understand, so she wrote it down in a way he could comprehend. When she handed him the note, it read, "I've noticed you looking at Mina, getting nervous, and blushing a little whenever she's around. Do you like her? I won't tell her or anyone. It'll be our secret unless you say so." The only word Izuku immediately recognized was Mina. As he read through the note, his cheeks warmed with embarrassment. Himiko signed, "Take your time," placing a hand on his shoulder and smiling. Izuku bit his lip, feeling a mix of embarrassment and warmth. Just then, Ijiro entered the room. "Hey guys, what are talkie? Oh, didn't see you there, Himiko," he said, and Himiko rolled her eyes in response. The other three soon joined them. "Whoa guys, there's a festival in the city tonight. You know what that means," Momo said, smiling as she looked at her phone. "Games and fireworks." Ijiro chimed in. "Cotton candy," Mina exclaimed. "Staying at home," Fumikage said, panic crossing his face as he waved his arms defensively. Well, with all the training we've done, I'm not sure if my legs could take all that walking." The others tilted their heads in confusion. "But it's a festival, dude. We can relax a bit and unwind from all the studying," Ijiro argued, though he understood Fumicage's hesitation. Just then, Guston and Hullen entered the house. Guston smiled and said, "A festival, fireworks, cotton candy. Sounds like a great night out. But first, let's get some training done. Izuku and Ijiro, you're with Momo and Fumikage, and Mina and Himiko will pair up." The 6 teens felt a spark of excitement at the thought of going out later, but Izuku couldn't help but wonder, what if fireworks and cotton candy? They trained for just under an hour. As the girls finished up in the changing room, Momo and Himiko noticed Mina was lost in thought. "Mina, you okay?" Momo asked, concern in her voice. "Oh, just thinking, that's all," Mina replied with a smile as she walked outside. Inside, she thought, "I know I'm bubbly and energetic, but why does thinking about relationships make my stomach feel like it's in knots? I'll figure it out later." "Took your time," Ijiro yelled out. Fumikage was stretching while Izuku practiced teleportation, adjusting the sizes of the portals. "Hey Izuku, can you open a portal to the fridge and get me a drink?" Ijiro asked, raising an eyebrow. Izuku opened a small portal and reached through. Suddenly, they heard Guston yell from another part of the house. "What is that?" Izuku quickly pulled his arm back, his face turning red from embarrassment. The others burst into laughter, except for Mina, who looked at Izuku and smiled, her cheeks turning a light shade of pink. This made Izuku feel better, and he eventually joined in the laughter, with Mina laughing along too. Momo noticed Mina's blush but chose not to comment, and they all decided to take a break soon after. Izuku rested for a while but was jolted awake by a strange tapping sound from beneath the ground. Slowly, he turned to look, but nothing was there. He then heard giggling and froze, sweat forming on his forehead. A figure appeared by his door and rushed toward him, passing right through him. He covered his mouth to stifle a scream, feeling embarrassed and flustered. He took a moment to control his breathing, but panic set in when a voice spoke. "Sorry, Izuku." It took him a moment to recognize it as Mina's. She appeared in front of him, clearly noticing how red he was. Looking down at her feet, she said, I thought I'd play a prank, but it was stupid of me. Sorry. Again." She blushed, feeling embarrassed herself. Realizing what had happened, Izuku looked away but managed to ask, "Are you planning on watching All Stars Matrix?" Despite his embarrassment, he couldn't help but smile, knowing the reason for her visit. Mina nodded slowly, her cheeks turning a deeper shade of purple. She covered her face with her hands and turned away. I am, Izuku. This will be our secret. But why UV? Izuku, I think you. Well, it's my fault, she stammered, trying to hold back laughter but feeling guilty instead. She hesitated, turning to leave, tears welling in her eyes. What have I done? She thought, her heart racing. I'll just leave you two. Well, why since I'm the last person you want to see, right? Mina, do you still want to watch All Stars Matrix? He asked, hiding a smile. Mina stopped in her tracks, surprised by his response. As Izuku went into the bathroom to change, she felt a mix of confusion and anticipation. As Izuku stepped outside, he smiled at Mina. "It's okay, I know I had an accident, but we just have to laugh about it. It's in the past, right?" Although he felt a bit embarrassed, Mina was more puzzled than anything as Izuku walked away. They watched an OVA of All Stars Matrix, both avoiding the earlier incident, yet feeling an indescribable sensation that neither could articulate. Later that night, Guston and Hullen joined the teens at the festival, all dressed casually in hoodies, jeans, and sneakers. The streets were lined with vendors offering various foods and games. One vendor caught Izuku's attention with the enticing aroma of freshly made katsudon. His mouth watered at the sight, and he hurriedly bought a bowl. The delicious smell intrigued the others, and Mina couldn't help but smile at the joy on Izuku's face, her cheeks turning a soft shade of lilac. Momo grinned at her. "What's that look for?" Mina asked quietly, to which Momo simply touched her cheek, causing Mina to squint in response. "Is that as good as cotton candy?" Fumikage asked. "I don't know. I haven't had cotton candy before," Izuku replied between mouthfuls, leaving the others in shock. "Can those words even be said in a sentence?" Ijiro exclaimed, his head spinning from disbelief. They continued on, still processing what Izuku had just revealed. "All right, who's buying cotton candy to share with Izuku?" Momo asked, looking at Mina. "But there are so many flavors," Ijiro added, still astonished. Mina noticed Momo's expectant gaze and was about to say something when she turned to Izuku. "Well, Izu, you like coffee, right?" He nodded, and Mina rushed to the nearest cotton candy vendor to buy a cappuccino flavor. She held it out to him, and he took a bite, surprised by the taste and texture. He nodded in approval. They all gathered food for dinner while waiting for the fireworks. Sitting on a hill with Guston and Hullen, Momo pulled Mina aside. Mina sensed what was coming but felt her cheeks flush. Momo spoke softly. "So, Mina, it looks like you have a crush, huh?" Mina nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Momo smiled and encouraged her. "Are you going to sit next to him?" After a moment of thought, Mina nodded again. Momo hugged her tightly. "You can do it." As the fireworks were being set up, Mina noticed Izuku was focused on the preparations. She sat down next to him, and he smiled at her, a hint of red creeping onto his cheeks. "Is that the fireworks?" he asked. Mina nodded, her eyes widening in surprise. "Why, you never seen fireworks?" she asked, and Izuku shook his head. "Oh, well, it's loud, so you might want to cover your ears. I'll tell you when. Also, they're pretty to look at," she said, glancing down at the setup. She could feel her cheeks warming, while Momo nodded encouragingly. Just as Mina was about to say more, the fireworks erupted in the sky. She looked at Izuku, whose eyes sparkled with wonder, and his smile was the biggest she had ever seen. Once the fireworks ended, Izuku turned to Mina, still beaming. "That was pretty cool, huh?" Mina smiled back, her own cheeks slightly flushed. Izuku nodded, noticing something about her yellow and black eyes shimmering in the light, her smile making his heart race, and her skin shifting from pink to a light purple. He turned away, realizing the reason behind his feelings just as Momo squealed in excitement. They turned to see Ijiro and Himiko sharing a kiss. "Do I do that now?" Izuku thought to himself. Mina reached for his hand to speak, but Guston interrupted. "All right, let's go." Mina felt Izuku squeeze her hand and smile, her heart racing as well. However, they quickly let go as everyone started walking back. Once they returned to the house, Mina resolved to tell Izuku how she felt. She approached his door and sighed before knocking. But as the door opened, she was unexpectedly pushed back, hitting her head against the kitchen bench, her vision blurring. 3 robed figures loomed over Izuku, and Mina, unsure if he was unconscious, weakly called out, "Izuku." The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was the figures carrying him through a portal. Izuku regained consciousness, feeling weightless and hearing muffled voices. He soon realized he was submerged in water, wearing only his underpants. As the water drained, he fell to his hands and knees, looking up to see 2 figures as the glass container opened. He attempted to use his powers, but nothing happened. The two figures removed their hoods. One was a tall man in his 40s with black hair and gray eyes. The other was a shorter woman who appeared to be around 18, with blonde hair tipped in dark blue and light blue eyes. As Izuku stood up, the woman approached and ran a finger along his chin, revealing rows of sharp, monster-like teeth. "Haney, no, we're keeping this one," the man said, while the woman rolled her eyes. "Welcome, Izuku. My daughter and I will make you feel at home," he said, raising his arms as he stepped closer. Kneeling down, he continued, "At the moment, you only know a small fraction of your power. I'll give you more than any training can provide. Haney, it will be ready soon." He walked away, leaving Haney to pull out a clipboard. Let's see about the others, shall we?" she mused, her tone soft but curious. "Oh, no wonder she's adopted," the male taunted, noticing the anger in Izuku's eyes. "Ah, sweetie, did I hit a nerve?" He then returned with a vial of red liquid, holding it out to Izuku. "This will be better than any training, it'll be power like you've never known." Izuku tried to knock it away, but Haney held him back while the male poured the liquid down Izuku's throat. Moments later, Izuku felt his body changing. It was a sensation of mind control, and he could feel and hear everything around him. Later, Mina awoke in her bed, surrounded by the others. "WMI? Wait, Izuku, where is he?" she exclaimed, finally realizing her surroundings. Tears streamed down her face as the others hugged her, and Momo stayed by her side for the rest of the night. Izuku, Haney, and her father returned from a mission where they had attacked a military factory, gaining information about more mutants. Izuku managed to resist the mind control enough not to harm anyone, but once they returned to the hideout, Haney and her father began to beat him. In the midst of the assault, Izuku activated a new power, his skin turning blue as he nearly melted his surroundings, but the other two were prepared and knocked him out. The next morning, the group of 5 teens discussed what had happened with Guston and Hullen. Mina, feeling withdrawn, grabbed her coffee and turned on the TV. Suddenly, the mug shattered as she fell to her knees. On the screen, 3 mutants were shown attacking a military factory, one of whom was Izuku. Momo rushed over to embrace Mina, whose body shook as she began to cry. "And oh no, no, no. Izuku, no," was all Mina could manage to say. In the hideout, as Izuku regained consciousness, he felt his body transforming, stronger than before. "So here I am with my heart in my hands, bloodied and bruised," he muttered to himself, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "So this is what it feels like," he said aloud, beginning to laugh. Days passed, and Mina felt herself slipping away with each minute. She became less social and more aggressive during training, often locking herself in her room. One morning, there was a knock on her door. When she didn't answer, the person knocked every 10 seconds until she finally swung the door open, exclaiming, "What?" To her surprise, it was Himiko. Using sign language, Himiko said, "Read this, please," holding out a piece of paper. Mina snatched it from her, wanting to rip it up but unable to do so. She read the letter. "Mina, yes, things don't look the best right now. We're all friends of Izuku, and maybe something more. But does that give you the right to shut yourself out from everything? We're all worried about him too, but that's why we need to stick together as a team. We don't know if we can get him back, but we have to try. We'll be here for you and Izuku every step of the way." Tears welled up in Mina's eyes, and she didn't hold them back. The letter felt like both a slap in the face and a comforting hug. She threw her arms around Himiko, who returned the embrace. "I'm sorry. I let my emotions take hold of me. You're right. We can get Izuku back," Mina said, her voice trembling. Meanwhile, Izuku had found 4 other mutants. The first was a 6'7" male named Brachus, who could control sound and electricity. The second was a 5' female named Skylar, who could manipulate her body temperature. The third was Cassie, who could breathe fire and ice, and the fourth was Leo, who could alter his size and redirect bullets. The 4 new mutants were immediately jealous of Izuku, wondering why he had 3 powers. They fought amongst themselves over the past few days, while Haney and her father plotted to test Izuku's worthiness. A few hours later, Mina felt much better, and everyone noticed. They were watching TV when a figure appeared on the screen, one who had been with Izuku when the news broke about the military factory attack. The figure removed his mask and spoke, "I have a feeling one of you will remember me, friend of Izuku. But I'll get to the point. I propose a battle, 5 mutants against 5 mutants in 1 hour. The coordinates will be displayed on the screen. If there are no shows, people will start dying." As the screen faded, Mina trembled with worry and anger. Momo put an arm around her. "Mina, we'll be there too, and if Izuku is there as well, we'll do our best to bring him back," she reassured her. Mina let out a heavy sigh and nodded. Guston and Hullen said they would be there but would keep their distance in case the figure tried something. The 7 of them made their way to the coordinates, a part of the city undergoing renovation. Buildings lined the street, with Izuku and the 4 other mutants occupying the center. Guston and Hullen split off before being seen, as the battle Haney's father wanted was about to unfold. 4 mutants charged at each other, except for Mina and Izuku, who slowly walked toward one another. As Mina approached, Izuku used shadows to bind her legs in place. To his surprise, she didn't resist. Instead, she stared at him with a cold expression. Izuku grinned as he got closer, holding her chin. Well, it seems you've grown a little in the past couple of days," he said, a teasing tone in his voice. "Still training, I bet. Though what's the use? Training will only get you so far. Other methods yield better results. I'm stronger now, stronger since I haven't been with you all. Stronger with a new power." He was interrupted as Mina moved her arm through his chest. He could feel her presence but couldn't touch her. In response, he wrapped his shadows around Mina's body, stopping just at her neck. He noticed tears streaming down her face as she spoke, her voice trembling. "Why you don't understand? With my arm through you, if I die, you die too. And as for you getting stronger, you can't just run away until the pain is gone. There's something stronger than power, Izu. Heartbreak. Not just for me but for all of us. I know you've said you've lived in shadows, but yesterday is gone. This is now. I won't leave you. I won't let you face this fight alone." Tears continued to fall from her eyes as she tried to reach for his hand, but the grip of the shadows was too strong. "Why? Is it because it's her that those words feel different?" Izuku thought to himself. Meanwhile, as the others were engaged in battle, Haney emerged from an alleyway to attack Mina, but Momo intercepted her with an extended, hardened arm. Haney crashed into a wall, the impact knocking the breath out of her. Just as she began to rise, a red beam struck her down, rendering her unconscious. Izuku turned to see Guston, his eyes glowing red. Distracted, he loosened the grip of his shadows, and Mina seized the moment, pulling him in for a brief but heartfelt kiss. Mina blushed slightly as she spoke. Now I have no regrets. There's only one thing left to do." Izuku felt his breathing quicken, sensing that Mina was trying to stop his heart, but the expression on her face was one of pain. "I have to tell her my true reason," he thought. Gathering his courage, he took her hand, surprised to find he could touch it. "Why?" she asked, her voice tinged with anger, though her tears were slowing. Izuku felt his own tears begin to fall. He needed to express what was on his mind. "Mina, I know that saying sorry won't change anything, but I have a reason. I wanted to get stronger because I was afraid. Afraid that if I couldn't, people would get hurt. I wanted to protect them, and look where it got me. I needed to protect you. Why are you different? You help me push on when I don't want to." "Mina, He was cut off as Haney's father charged at him, slamming him against the wall. "You're a fool. I gave you power, and you are sacrificing it for a girl? You think?" His words were interrupted by a rock that shot up from the ground, launched by Hullen. The rock struck him in the torso, sending him flying backward. Hullen locked eyes with her husband, and he understood it was best to retreat. He grabbed his daughter and the other mutants, pulling them away. Izuku sank to the ground, his face in his hands, sobbing. Hullen helped him up and offered a comforting hug. Mina approached slowly, and Hullen moved her arm to embrace both of them. Izuku kept repeating that he was sorry. They understood his remorse. "Izuku, we'll find them. You're not alone in this," Hullen reassured him. Izuku nodded, unable to find the words. After some time, the group made their way home. Fumikage and Momo prepared dinner, but Izuku barely ate and retreated to his room. Mina sighed, and Momo placed a hand on her shoulder, nodding in understanding. Mina stood up and approached Izuku's door. Hey Izuku, do you mind if I join you? She asked, trying to mask her nervousness. Izuku, oblivious to her anxiety, replied, No, I don't mind. I'm still sorry. For everything, for hurting everyone. For hurting you. Mina sat on the ground next to him, resting her head on his shoulder and wrapping her arm around him. Aizu. It's okay. We'll stop them. Plus, you're back safe, and though it'll take time, you'll get better. I promise, she said, inching closer. Izuku sighed, something weighing on his mind. Mina moved in front of him, holding his hands, her cheeks flushed. He felt his own face warm in response. Looking into Mina's eyes, the smile she offered made his heart race. He returned the smile, and her heart quickened. Mina. Earlier, when you said you had no regrets, he struggled to finish his thought. Mina tightened her grip on his hands, biting her lip before finally speaking. Well, first, I'm sorry for that. Trying to. The truth is, I was. Feelings, Aizu. I couldn't lose you. That night after the fireworks, you know we were. Actually, forget it, we both know the feelings in our hearts. Slowly, she released his hands and cupped his face in her palms. They both recognized the truth of their feelings. Leaning in, they touched foreheads before sharing a gentle kiss, the fear of losing each other beginning to fade. The following morning began in an unexpected way. Mina had walked through the wall and was sitting on Momo's bed. Momo awoke to find Himiko at her desk. Mina was fidgeting, a blush on her cheeks. Momo moved closer, wrapping an arm around her, while Himiko sat on the other side, doing the same. Taking a deep breath, Mina bit her lip and began to speak rapidly. I was with Izuku last night and I think we might. Momo interrupted gently. Mina, deep breaths. Slow down. I can feel you shaking, so take your time. Mina nodded, calming herself. I'm overthinking this whole thing because, well, I haven't been in a relationship before. So, here's what happened. Last night when I checked on Izuku, we chatted a little, and then I'm not sure if we're a couple now or what. Mina admitted, her blush deepening. Well, do you want to be a couple? Momo asked. Mina bit her lip again, contemplating her feelings. That's the thing. When it comes to feelings, I usually overthink things. Sure, I would like that, but what if the kiss was just a kiss? I'm overthinking this because, hello, I've got mutant powers and I don't exactly look normal, you know? Just then, a knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Momo, breakfast is almost ready, Fumikage called from the other side. Mina and Himiko exchanged glances, surprised to see Momo blush slightly. Mina turned to Himiko, her curiosity piqued. The night of the fireworks, you and Ijiro kissed. Is that the couple thing? Himiko nodded, a smile spreading across her face. Mina thought to herself, so Himiko and Ijiro are a couple, Momo likes Fumikage and I like Izuku, but it feels weird. I'll just see how things go. The silence was soon broken by Ijiro's loud exclamation. What do you mean you've got an extra power? Mina reflected on her time with Izuku the previous night. An extra power sounds interesting, she thought as the three girls made their way out. Ijiro, calm down, Gusten called out. Ijiro threw his hands up in exasperation but then spotted Himiko and smiled. That makes it look easy. Mina whispered, though her voice carried. Make what look easy? Izuku asked, causing Mina to jump. Both of them turned red as everyone else looked on. Thankfully, Gusten stepped in to ease the tension. Okay, we'll wait a little while after breakfast, then maybe train. If Izuku wants to show his power, he can. That was the plan. After a quiet breakfast, Mina sat across from Izuku, stealing glances at him. He noticed and smiled back, sending butterflies fluttering in her stomach. So, do we need to confirm this? Is this love? She pondered, her cheeks turning a light shade of lilac. Momo called out, announcing that everyone was moving to the gym. Ijiro continued to pester Izuku about revealing his new power, and the others were eager to see it too. Although Izuku felt uneasy under the spotlight, a quick smile from Mina helped him relax. I eventually was able to control it more and keep it a secret from them, he said, raising his right arm. As he focused, a blue flame began to curl up his arm before shooting out in front of him, reaching up to 3 meters. Everyone, including Gus Ten and Hullen, was amazed. Izuku turned to them, but then noticed his arm changing to a darkish blue. Shocked, he nervously chuckled and waved his arm as if it were on fire. Great! This hasn't happened before. Mina will probably think I'm an idiot, he thought. While Izuku waved his arm, Ijiro turned to Gus Ten and Hullen. So, do we get an extra power as well? Gus Ten shrugged. Physically no. You would have known by now. It's probably just experimentation. Ijiro wasn't satisfied with that answer and began to pester Gus Ten again until Hullen spoke up. Mr. Nakajima knows what happened with everything. He'll be here later today and might know something. In the meantime, train. Time will go faster. Ijiro groaned, and the others looked at him. Okay, geez, I'll train, he said, standing up. Izuku, are you joining? Hullen called out. Izuku, still distracted, replied, sure. I'll join. Hullen stood up and announced, all right then, Himiko, you're with Izuku. Mina, you're with Momo, and Fumikage is with Ijiro, but there's going to be a slight difference. She smirked and nodded to Gus Ten, who opened a briefcase. The 6 teens looked on in confusion. Hullen explained, these bracelets are in the developmental stage. Once equipped, they'll act like a health bar. Once it's depleted, the wearer will begin to lose consciousness for a few minutes. So pretty much, don't take damage. The teens nodded slowly and put on the bracelets. A quick jolt of electricity signaled that they were connected, and a bar lit up. Himiko signed, sorry, but I won't go easy on you. Izuku nodded, though he was still concerned about his arm. The teens trained non-stop for 55 minutes, finishing with 5 minutes of push-ups. Exhausted, they handed over the bracelets. Suddenly, someone started clapping. The teens turned to see Mr. Nakajima. Truly amazing. But I have some people here. Miss Ishido, if you would like the others to join, that's up to them. Otherwise, follow me please. Mina looked to the others, shrugged, and gestured for them to follow. They trailed behind Mr. Nakajima to the kitchen area, where Mina stopped in her tracks. Mom? Dad? What are you doing here? She asked, her foster parents smiling at her. Her foster mother had tears in her eyes as she spoke. We adopted you when you were 7 years old and you kept your last name. We think it'll be better if you heard it from them. Confused, Mina watched as Mr. Nakajima opened the door, revealing 2 pink-skinned individuals. The female stood at 5'3", her horn shorter than Mina's, while the male was 5'7" with a darker shade of pink skin. Mina recognized them immediately, her actual parents. She rushed over to hug her foster parents, tears streaming down her cheeks, before turning to embrace her biological parents. Hesitating for a moment, she finally wrapped her arms around them, overwhelmed with emotion. After a while, Mina's foster parents had to leave. They hugged Mina and her biological parents before departing. Mina still couldn't believe it. Her actual parents were standing right in front of her. They eventually sat down, and the silence lingered until Mina's father broke it with a gruff voice. By the look on your face, you still can't believe it. Neither can we, but we'll cut to the chase. Mr. Nakajima found us a few days ago. He said we looked familiar and asked if we had a daughter named Mina. The 3 of us got in contact with your foster parents, and we all made the trip here. He glanced at his wife, who spoke in a sweet, calm voice. As for seemingly abandoning you, we were judged by our appearance. We wanted you to have a better life, but we had a feeling one day you'd get powers, which Mr. Nakajima explained. We're grateful to him for that. We'll remain in contact with you and stay here for a while longer before we have to leave. Mina nodded slowly. At least I know you're still out there, that I can talk to you both whenever I want. Mina spoke with a wobbly tone, tears beginning to form in her eyes. I made 5 friends who didn't judge me at all. Her parents exchanged smiles, and her father leaned in to whisper something to her mother, who tried to hide a smile but couldn't. What's going on? Mina asked, curious. Her father gestured for her to come closer and whispered, do you have a boyfriend yet? Because I think that green-haired boy likes you. Mina felt a blush creep onto her cheeks as she sighed and replied, I'm kissed but we're not together. I'm going to ask him tonight, though. She thought to herself, I did it? I mean yeah, IOHCRP I did it. Now I just need to see if Izuku feels the same way. Her parents stayed for a few hours before leaving, and though Mina didn't want to say goodbye, she did. Now, all she had to do was tell Izuku how she felt properly this time. The rest of the day flew by, especially for Mina. Later that night, while the others were asleep, she knocked on Izuku's door, planning to watch the second over of All Stars Matrix. When he opened the door and saw her, he quickly ran to his desk and grabbed a piece of paper. I've been working on this all day, he said, his voice trembling. I pushed through the fact that I can't read or write properly, but I'm getting better. Tears began to well up in his eyes, and Mina felt her own eyes start to water. She unfolded the paper and began to read silently. The writing wasn't perfect, but she didn't care. It was from Izuku, and that meant everything to her. The letter read, Mina, I know I'm not the best writer, but that's how much you mean to me. You're funny, caring, and courageous. That night with the fireworks, I saw you for what you truly are. Appealing and amazing. Your horns are pretty cute, and your pink skin suits you. I've noticed you've been acting a little different since I came back, and I think I know why. So I've left out 3 words from this letter. Mina looked up, her heart racing. Aizu, what are those 3 words? Izuku took a deep breath. I love you, he said with a smile. It took a moment for Mina to process his words. She threw her arms around him, giving him a joyful kiss. When they finally broke apart, tears of happiness streamed down her face as she said, that was. You big doofus, I love you too. Izuku kissed her again, and they embraced for a few minutes before sitting down in front of the TV, holding each other and watching All Stars Matrix. The next few days were filled with training but were somewhat uneventful for the teens as they waited to see if Mr. Nakajima or the other mutants had any plans. After breakfast one day, Mr. Nakajima called Gus 10 and Hullen. The teens were eager to hear what was happening once the call ended, sitting as still as possible while Gus 10 and Hullen returned inside. I'm guessing the call from Mr. Nakajima is why you're all so quiet? Gus 10 said while preparing coffee for himself and his wife. The teens nodded eagerly. Gus 10 smirked and continued, well, first, we'll be leaving this place for good. Second, Mr. Nakajima thinks it's time for the 6 of you to join the facility he built to help other mutants. It's understandable if leaving here isn't in anyone's interest. To his surprise, the teens looked happy. More mutants? A safe haven to help each other? It was an exciting opportunity. Gus 10 contacted a driver for the teens, and they packed up before noon. They were picked up in a minibus, and Mina sat next to Izuku. During the trip, she couldn't contain her excitement and squeezed his hand tightly. Izuku turned to her, and she grinned. I'm so excited, Izuku. A new place while we're still together, plus new mutants. It's going to be fun, she said, trying to keep her voice down. Of course it'll be fun. A new opportunity to help grow our powers. And friendships, Momo chimed in from behind them, her voice filled with enthusiasm. She and Fumikage were now a couple, as were Ijiro and Himiko, and of course, Izuku and Mina. After a while, Mina rested her head on Izuku's shoulder as he wrapped his arm around her. This will be a new chapter for all of us. I'm just glad we'll be spending it together, he said softly. Mina smiled and replied, Aizu, you're such a cheesy romantic, but you're my cheesy romantic. Izuku blushed, still shy despite their relationship. The trip lasted 3 hours. The facility was hidden behind a barrier disguised as a wall in a tunnel. Once the minibus stopped, the teens got off, and Gus 10 and Hullen greeted them, helping to unpack. The outside of the facility resembled a mansion, while the inside was state-of-the-art, complete with an underground complex for training and developing powers. As they walked to their new rooms, Gus 10 said, Mr. Nakajima mentioned that the 5 of you who don't have a third power can decide if you want one. The 5 nodded, smiles spreading across their faces as they noticed other mutants watching from a distance. I'm guessing that's a yes? If so, finish unpacking, then meet me in the dining area. And while you're thinking of a possible new power, make sure it works well with your existing ones, Gus 10 said, waving as he and Hullen walked away. The teens began to unpack, and Mina, the most excited of them all, finished first. Unable to stay still, she headed toward Izuku's room but accidentally bumped her head against the wall. That's weird. Do these walls stop our powers? Mina wondered to herself. The rest of the teens finished unpacking and made their way to the dining area where Gus 10 and Hullen were waiting. They all began walking, stopping at a hospital-like room where an elderly woman stood outside. The only thing in the room was a table with straps, seemingly designed to hold people down. Unfortunately, there's no painless way to do this, Gus 10 explained. So the 5 of you will need to be strapped down and injected with a needle, assuming the power you've thought of can be easily done. Mina spoke up, before we start, do the walls in our rooms stop our powers? He nodded. It's more of a safety procedure. With so many mutants in one place, we want to avoid any incidents. Okay, if that's all, we'll begin. Whoever goes first, enter and speak to the doctor about your third power, then listen to her, Hullen instructed. Mina entered the room eagerly and spoke to the doctor, who asked her to lie down on the table and then strapped her wrists and ankles down. 2 robotic arms with syringes descended from the ceiling. It'll be a sharp but quick pain, the doctor assured her. Mina nodded as the syringes approached. They jabbed her arms at the wrists, and she yelped in discomfort as the green liquid drained into her body. Now we wait, the doctor said. Over the next few minutes, Mina's body began to shake, but she couldn't move due to the restraints. After a while, she called out, "How do I know if it's finished? I feel better, but I'm not sure if I'm different." The doctor chuckled. "We may have to wait a bit longer for your new power to manifest, but only you will know. Next person." One by one, the others went. Ijiro gained the ability to see through walls, Momo could unleash spikes from her body, Himiko could change her appearance to match anyone she saw, and Fumikage discovered he could grow wings. Mina felt a bit disappointed that her new power hadn't shown up right away, but a hug from Izuku made her feel better. Soon, they were greeted by a familiar face as Mr. Nakajima approached. He opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by an alarm blaring. "Intruders at Block C. Intruders at Block C," a robotic voice announced. "They're here. Wait for my signal," Mr. Nakajima instructed, waving as he walked off. "Everyone stay calm, Mr. Nakajima has it under control," Gus 10 reassured the teens, who were beginning to follow him. They kept their distance as they trailed behind, though Mina stayed further back. Mr. Nakajima entered a dome-like room about 3 stories high. The room was usually empty, but a robed figure standing in the middle indicated otherwise. They recognized it as Haney's father. "Of course, the mentor figure is a mutant. Tell me something I don't know," Haney's father called out. Mr. Najima responded by dropping his walking stick and, with lightning speed, zipped behind the robed figure. He aimed for a kidney shot, but the figure caught the blow with his left hand, a grin spreading across his face as Haney appeared, ready to attack. However, she was met with a fire blast from Izuku. The other 4 mutants joined the fray, and Izuku was struck by an electricity bolt from Breakus, knocking him back. Cassie unleashed an ice blast at the others, but Momo extended her arms to catch it and throw it back. Leo grew larger to try and squash Momo, but she shot a spike from her body, nearly piercing his hand. Skylar attempted to capitalize on the distraction by charging at Himiko, but Ijiro intercepted her with a shoulder charge. Fumikage took to the air, growing wings to attack Leo, but Breakus projected his voice to create a diversion. When Fumikage turned towards the sound, Leo seized him. Fumikage retaliated by biting Leo's finger, drawing blood. Himiko rushed over, ready to assist, but was interrupted when Mr. Nakajima was thrown into her. Haney's father then caused the ground to shake violently, trapping Izuku and the others as they sank down, unable to move. He began walking toward Mr. Naima when he noticed the door open and turned to see Mina enter, a smirk on her face. This girl is mine. I'll deal with her, then the others, he declared. Mina's expression shifted to seriousness as she stepped forward, locking eyes with Haney's father. I'm here to chew gum and kick butt, and I'm all out of gum, she said calmly. As she finished speaking, Haney's father looked slightly concerned as Mina multiplied, creating 5 more versions of herself. One of them sank into the ground. What's happening? Haney asked, but no one answered. The Mina that had gone underground launched upward, connecting with a headbutt to Haney's chin before disappearing back into the ground. Haney's father looked around, confused, but before he could react, Breakus screamed as he was dragged underground, though no one could see what had grabbed him. Mina and her clones blended into the room, and one of her clones punched Skylar. Think of something, Leo shouted. Haney's father began to shake the ground again, creating another mini-earthquake, but he was halted when an arm burst through his chest. Cassie froze Mina's legs as Haney's father seemed to phase out to escape the arm. Finish it, he commanded. Cassie nodded and froze the rest of Mina's body. As Cassie walked around to look at Mina's face, she stepped back, startled by Mina's grin. Wrong one, Mina sang as 2 more versions of her rose from the ground, both landing punches on Cassie's face. Cassie wobbled on her feet before collapsing. Haney, Leo, and Skylar prepared to attack, but Breakus was thrown up from the ground, unconscious. Shadows began to grab the legs of Haney, Leo, and Skylar as Momo extended her arms to bind them together. Haney's father felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Mr. Nakajima standing behind him. Nakajima exclaimed, "If your mutants had worked more as a team, it would have been an interesting battle." He threw Haney's father to the ground and cuffed his hands. Mr. Nakajima called out, "Gus 10 Hullen. I'm grateful you let me join in, but I think I'm getting too old," he chuckled. Gus 10 and Hullen then cuffed the other mutants as Mina's clones began to fade until only one Mina remained, collapsing to the ground on her hands and knees, breathless. Izuku rushed over and placed her arm around his shoulder. Mina looked at him and smiled. "I did it, Izu. I used my new power. And took down some bad guys too," she said between gasps. Izuku smiled back but frowned slightly. "Mina, what did you mean by all out of bubblegum?" he asked. Mina held up a finger as she continued to catch her breath, then nodded. "It's from a movie. We can watch it for a date night." "We'll snuggle up while we watch it too," she replied, causing Izuku to blush. The others approached, praising Mina for how she handled herself and her new power. She rubbed the back of her head. "It wasn't a problem, I'm just glad I could help," she said with a smile. Haney's father and the other mutants were taken away to be locked up separately while awaiting transport to a new facility. Later that day, Gus 10 and Hullen showed the teens around the compound, which had its own gym and pool like the previous place. However, the underground training area was the size of a small town and featured a virtual reality function with changeable scenery for different combat situations. The teens were surprised when they were told they could have the rest of the day off, but they were happy to spend time together. Throughout the day, Mina thought of pranks she could pull on the others with her new power, mostly targeting Izuku, but she decided to save the pranks for the next day. That night, as Izuku relaxed on his bed, he began to smell popcorn. Checking the time, he saw it was 8 p.m. A knock on his door made him suspect who it was. He was grateful that the 6 of them had their own lounge and kitchen area for some space away from the other mutants living in the facility. He opened the door to find Mina, dressed in a dark purple hoodie and a black skirt. He was about to compliment her appearance when she grabbed his hand. "Come on, Izu, date night," she exclaimed, almost pulling him along. He sat down on the couch as Mina handed him the popcorn and started the movie. Mina settled next to him. "The movie is called They Live. It's where I got the bubblegum quote from. Some people call it a hit or miss, but they don't know what they're talking about. Oh, and I'm going to guess that during the movie, you'll pretend to be tired, yawn, and then put your arm around me for a kiss," she said. Izuku raised an eyebrow but leaned in to kiss her anyway. "I guess I'm just a cheesy romantic, huh?" he replied, making Mina giggle before she started the movie. Throughout the film, Mina rested her head on his chest as he wrapped an arm around her, and they remained that way for the rest of it. Izuku ended up enjoying the movie. Once it finished, Mina sat up to look at Izuku, her cheeks turning a light shade of pink. Hey, Izuku, she began. He turned to her with a smile as she continued, "Thank you for being a great friend and an amazing boyfriend, for not letting my looks define me, pink skin and all, for encouraging me and especially for being there for me. I'm saying this because I'm curious about the future, not just for us, but about how the world will view us. I think the point I'm trying to make is that with our powers, we have to make the right choices." Izuku pulled her closer and embraced her. "I know, I was thinking the same thing, Mina. With other mutants causing destruction and pain, people might label all mutants the same, which is why we have to make a change. No matter how long it takes, together and along with everyone else," he said. Mina broke from the hug, tears rolling down her cheeks, but she was smiling. "A hero for the masses, huh?" she said. Izuku sheepishly rubbed the back of his head and laughed a little. Mina grabbed him by the shoulders. "What are you embarrassed for? If you're going to be a hero for everyone, that would be amazing, helping those in need. That's why I love you," she said, then burst into laughter. Izuku tilted his head in confusion, and Mina calmed down, wiping her tears. "Aizu, the thought of you wearing spandex. Oh, it's too adorable and hilarious. Just imagine my figure in spandex, is that better?" she said with a wink. Izuku laughed and shook his head before looking at Mina. "Hero costumes may be out of the question for now, but I know that whatever you wear, you'll look amazing. That's why I love you. But we probably shouldn't stay up too much longer," he said, his words making Mina blush. She rolled her eyes but smiled. "Fine, Aizu, we can snuggle like I know you want to, then we'll go to sleep," she said, curling up to him. But in the back of their minds, they both wondered if the world was ready for mutants appearing everywhere. 5 years later, was the world truly prepared for a sudden increase in mutants? Things had changed dramatically for everyone, including the 16s. Over the next 2 years, Haney's father prepared for a war that caused destruction and loss of life. His plan to instill fear in mutants backfired, resulting in his demise. Haney took up the mantle of mutant leader but eventually disappeared, leading to a rare PRD of peace. Ijiro and Himiko seized the opportunity to get married and decided to establish a refuge for abandoned mutants to help them rebuild their lives. The other 4 chose not to marry just yet, with Fumikage and Momo continuing to work with Mr. Nakajima. Mina was selected and trained for a mutant strike force that traveled worldwide, dealing with rogue mutants and plots against governments. Unfortunately, this also meant that Mina and Izuku spent less time together, sometimes not seeing each other for months. As the end of their second year approached, the teens had organized to meet up, but Izuku was absent. For the next 3 years, while Mina was on missions, she tried to gather information about him. Present day. In a small office space illuminated only by the glow of a computer screen, Mina, now 22 years old, had transformed into a striking young woman. Her face and attitude had matured, her hair now cascading just past her shoulders, with an undercut on the left side. Only her team knew about this change, as she wore a choker that allowed her to alter her appearance and voice during missions. For her work, she typically donned a black camo bodysuit made from durable, flexible carbon fiber designed to absorb impacts. In her disguise, she had tan skin, short blonde hair usually tied in a ponytail, hazel eyes, and ensured her horns were concealed, careful not to get too close to others. She typed and clicked away, gathering information onto a USB drive, mostly about illegal activities but also searching for something else. After a few minutes, she sighed in frustration. Still nothing about him, dang it, she thought as she secured the USB in her belt. Suddenly, she heard the door behind her open, and a gruff male voice broke the silence. "Judging by the tied-up bodies and lack of unopened doors, you've got some sort of power, like a mutant?" Mina sighed, realizing she had missed one. Turning around, she was surprised to see that the man looked only a year or 2 younger than her. Unfortunately for him, Mina would be the last thing he saw for a while as one of her clones appeared behind him and incapacitated him. She quickly hogtied him and slipped through a wall to the restroom. Pulling out her phone, she messaged her contact, "It's done, tell the local authorities where he is." After a few seconds, the reply came, "Good job, Pinky. Keep your disguise on." "We found a mutant. I'll be there in a few seconds to pick you up." Mina shrugged and hopped onto the sink, reaching through the air vent above to retrieve a bag containing casual clothes. She slung one strap over her shoulder and exited the building to find a dark red '69 Mustang waiting. Climbing into the car, the driver accelerated. "The mutant is only a few blocks away, but we can't risk anyone else finding him. He hasn't displayed any powers, but dark blue skin and a tail should say otherwise," the driver explained, slowing down and pointing toward an alleyway. Mina glanced in that direction and spotted a figure sitting on the ground, wearing ripped jeans and an old, stained hoodie, but no shoes. She stepped out of the car and approached the mutant. As he looked up, she noticed his short, spiked blue hair and yellow eyes, along with two fangs protruding from his mouth. He began to crawl away. Mina halted and raised her hands in front of her. Okay, this may seem unlikely, but I'm here to help." "Are you hurt at all?" she said calmly, offering a reassuring smile. The mutant slowly stood, using the wall for support as he swayed slightly. Mina could tell he was unwell. She took a cautious step forward, and his breathing quickened. He stumbled, and Mina caught him, checking his pulse. "Fine, if you want to help, get me food, then get lost," he said weakly before losing consciousness. Mina carefully carried him to the car to take him to the facility where she worked. 2 hours later, the mutant awoke in a bed with an 4 drip in his left arm, and Mina, still in her disguise, sat nearby. She smiled when she saw he was awake. "So, my blue-skinned friend, your body is getting what it needs, but a doctor will see to your proper food. I'm Tony, by the way. What's your name?" "Fracture is my name, my mutant name. As for my actual name, you won't get it," he replied, his voice clearer than before. Mina nodded. "That's fine. One thing you should know, this facility is called Zion. It was built to train mutants and humans to counter attacks, run espionage programs, which explains my suit, and to provide shelter for mutants who are targeted outside. Any further questions?" "And no, I don't know when a doctor will visit," she said. Fracture shook his head. Mina stood up and waved before leaving. Once outside, she pressed a button on her choker, deactivating her disguise. Her phone rang. It was General Theo, one of the head operators of the facility. "Mina, there's an interesting development regarding the new mutant. His powers seem to include multiple abilities based on his DNA, skin, and tissue samples. The blue skin and tail are just 2, but the structure of his body suggests maybe 3 more. This leads us to an idea, but it'll ultimately be up to you," he said, his deep voice steady. "Go ahead," she replied. After a brief pause, he continued, "The idea is for the 2 of you to fight. If you accept, we'll allow both of you to rest for a few hours." Mina chuckled lightly. "So the person who helped him will be the one to fight him?" "Sure, I accept," she said. Theo grunted in approval. "I will inform him about it, but won't tell him we'll be closely monitoring the fight for anything unusual," he said before hanging up. Mina made her way to the kitchen for a late lunch, then headed to her room for a shower and some rest. She dozed off, only to awaken when her phone buzzed with a message. "It's time," from Theo. Mina changed into her spare bodysuit, and before leaving her room, she glanced in the mirror, smiling at the green and pink pendant shaped like 2 koi fish that hung from it, a gift from Izuku, the last memory she had of him. She could feel tears welling up, but she pushed through. "I'll win this fight for you, Izu," she said quietly before activating her disguise and exiting her room. Mina arrived at the training room, a dome-shaped space 20 feet high with a sealed observation room at 15 feet overlooking the action below. Theo's voice echoed through the PA system. "All right, since you've both been informed, this will be a training trial. Fight well, but don't kill each other. Other than that, begin when ready." Mina smirked at Fracture, who wore a bodysuit similar to hers. However, her smirk quickly faded when a portal opened behind Fracture, and he stepped through it. Another portal opened behind her, and in a moment of frustration, Mina swung wildly behind her, but Fracture easily ducked under her attack. As the portal behind him closed, he lunged at Mina, but she grabbed his legs, causing him to look back in surprise. Suddenly, Mina multiplied, creating 4 additional clones of herself. Fracture kicked wildly to break free and opened a portal beneath him, disappearing for a few seconds. Mina felt something gripping her ankles and looked down to see shadows holding her in place. A portal opened behind her, and Fracture reappeared in front of her, kicking her into the portal. Mina found herself falling from the top of the room, but just before hitting the ground, she activated a new part of her clone ability, swapping places with one of her clones. Now standing safely on the ground, she watched as her clone flew through the open portal, only to be viciously kicked by Fracture. Determined to get answers, Mina sunk into the ground, emerging behind Fracture and sweeping his legs out from under him. He crashed to the ground, and she stomped on his now burnt hand, causing him to cry out in pain. One of her clones stood over him, pushing him down with her foot. "How does it feel? I think I'll show you my true face before you." So, in other words, Fracture, I'm done playing games. Mina declared coldly as she touched her choker, revealing her true form. To her surprise, Fracture showed no signs of fear, only relief, which annoyed her further. "Say something," she screamed. Fracture smiled slightly. "You've turned into a appealing woman since I last saw you, Mina," he said softly. His body stopped sinking as she tilted her head, at a loss for words. Her eyes shifted back to their original colors as she made her clone disappear and knelt down beside him. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't rip your head off," she demanded, clenching her fist. Fracture took a deep breath. "The pendant you have has a small inscription on the back." "What does it say?" His calm words only fueled Mina's growing fury. "It says, while the green seas continue to rage, may the pink breeze continue to calm them," Fracture finished for her. Mina sat back, her face paling as the realization hit her. My boyfriend gave me that. There's no way you would know what was inscribed, no way you would know him," she said softly, disbelief washing over her. Fracture nodded slightly. "Of course I know him. He's me. Izuku Midoriya is the name you wanted to hear, right? Just like your Mina Ishido is my girlfriend, I'm pretty sure," he explained. Mina sunk into the ground, a muffled, "What?" faintly escaping her lips. Slowly, she popped her head out of the ground, staring blankly at him. Izuku continued, "Okay, fireworks, cotton candy, all stars matrix. You said you'd call your hero name Pinky, and I would call mine Deku. That bubblegum quote from They Live." Tears began to roll down Mina's cheeks as she emerged fully from the ground and embraced him. "I'm sorry I hurt you. I thought something had happened, and those powers were yours, but I didn't stop to think if it was actually you. Which I now know it is, Izu. I never gave up trying to find you. It's been the longest 3 years of my life," she confessed. Izuku held her tightly. "That makes 2 of us. I'm glad I didn't really hurt you. But it's my fault you jumped to conclusions about what might have happened to me. I should have stayed in contact. I'm an idiot for not doing so. I joined up with a mutant group, but they turned out to be bad, which is why I have blue skin and a tail. Plus, we traveled all over the world, which didn't help. I'm just really glad I found you, that we found each other," he said, tears beginning to form in his own eyes. "Can you change back at all?" Mina asked after a moment of silence, wiping their tears away. "I'm trying to, but I can't seem to," Izuku replied, his voice filled with uncertainty. Though it had given him a new ability to avoid detection by infrared cameras, the most important thing was that it was still him, even if his voice was a little deeper. Mina giggled and smiled, but her expression changed when a door opened behind her. She frowned and stood up, instinctively shielding Izuku. Theo walked in, looking to be in his late 50s with a buzz cut of gray hair and a mustache, standing at 5'9". "Tony." Mina, it's okay. There's a lot of potential in your friend there. Even though you've spent 3 years here, I could try to pull some strings to allow, Izuku was it? To accompany you on missions. Though that means the missions won't be as high tier as some of the previous ones," he said. Inside, Mina was jumping with joy, but she managed to nod calmly. Theo raised an eyebrow. Did we mishear that you 2 are in a romantic relationship? I thought you would have been more excited, provided I can actually get him on missions with you." Mina opened her mouth to respond, but her thoughts were interrupted when Izuku took her hand. Taking a deep breath, Mina struggled to find her words. No, yes, we, he, was all she could manage. Izuku, how's your arm? She asked, now calmer. It's getting there. I'm not sure if it's part of my skin, but over time I can heal, so please, Mina, don't worry. And in the process of cheesy lines, I'll feel a lot better now that I'm with you, he said, making Mina blush. She coughed lightly. Hey Izu. Shut up and kiss me, she replied, causing Izuku's cheeks to turn a lighter shade of blue. Mina then pulled him closer, sharing a sweet kiss. And on that note, I'll go make preparations for Izuku joining up, Theo said, trying not to intrude on their moment. Izuku and Mina slowly pulled away, looking a bit awkward. Theo cleared his throat. Yeah, I shouldn't be the one to tell you both, ahem. Just train, do well on missions and such, he said with a chuckle before walking out. The reunited couple shook their heads, and Mina was the first to speak. Even though we are adults now, just keep it in check, okay? She said with a giggle, noticing Izuku tense up. Shut up, I can. Never mind. We still have the future ahead, for the entire world, not just us, he said softly, feeling a bit embarrassed. Mina squeezed his hand. See, that's the Izuku I remember. To the future. Plus, I love you Izuku of course, she said. Izuku turned and kissed her forehead. To the future. I love you too, Mina. No cheesy romantic line needed, he replied. It had been 2 months since Izuku joined the strike force. In that time, he managed to control the color of his skin, returning it to its original hue, along with his eyes and hair, though he still had a tail. When he first changed his appearance in front of Mina without warning, it had startled her. Over the past 2 months, Izuku had shown great skill in combat and was paired with Mina for missions. They were on their way to capture a mutant who seemed knowledgeable despite his personality. The dossier they received indicated that the mutant had ties with Haney. The black armored SUV they were traveling in came to a stop, and the driver nodded at them. Mina touched her choker, activating her blonde-haired disguise, while Izuku changed his skin and hair to blue and his eyes to yellow. They wore black camo bodysuits with half masks that left the top halves of their faces visible. Once they exited the SUV, it drove off. Mina checked her belt to ensure they had everything they needed. She gave Izuku a nod. It's all here. Let's go tag him, she said as they approached an abandoned factory surrounded by a SWAT team. The SWAT team leader acknowledged them. It's docile if we remain outside, but once we go in, it snaps and goes ballistic. Its power is slime-based, latching onto walls or throwing things, so we'll stay out here. It's all yours, he said, gesturing toward the entrance. Izuku and Mina exchanged glances, disliking the way some referred to mutants as it, but they kept their emotions in check. As they entered the building, the first thing they noticed was the smell. It was as if a pile of corpses had been left to rot. The factory was 15 feet high, filled with machinery, robotic arms, furnaces, and shelves scattered throughout the dimly lit area. A squeaky male voice echoed, "You two are different, no M4A1 rifles or SWAT armor. Come to play, yes?" They didn't respond. Izuku emitted a blue flame from his right palm, illuminating the space a bit. The voice giggled. "Oh, a bit unique are we? Though the blue skin show, wait, where's the other one?" he called out, realizing Mina had vanished. Izuku heard something clatter to his left. The voice continued, "Telekinesis, huh? I think I've heard of you. You may have to die first, although that one with the sparky fingers is too quiet for my liking." The mutant dropped from the ceiling and came into view, throwing some slime that latched onto Izuku's arm. He quickly burned it off, but the rotting smell made his eyes water. The mutant stood 5'6", with short brown hair and gray eyes. He wore a plain white shirt and jeans, though his skin appeared watery and seemed ready to drop from his body. Izuku opened a portal next to the mutant. "That's the exit. Take it," he said with a deadpan expression. The mutant tilted his head as the portal closed. "You said that was my exit?" he said, annoyed. "Oh yeah, I forgot to mention you had 3 seconds before it closes," Izuku replied, not particularly concerned since he had the portal exit nearby. Izuku dimmed the flame in his hand as the mutant charged at him, but froze in terror when he noticed the massive shadow behind Izuku. The creature had piercing red eyes and rows of sharp teeth. "Now look what you did. You've upset my friend. But tell me, who was meant to be the first to die?" Izuku said calmly, causing the mutant to tremble even more. The mutant turned to flee but stopped short when he saw Mina's floating head, disguised. "It's either me or him," she said. The mutant sank to his knees, his voice shaking. "It doesn't matter, just keep that thing away from me." Mina pulled out a collar and decisive from her belt, cuffing him and placing the collar around his neck. A tiny needle jabbed into his neck, disabling his powers for a few minutes. Mina nodded at Izuku. "I'll call it in," he said, activating a small screen on his wrist. Mina lifted the mutant. "Can we go around another way?" he asked, his voice quivering. Mina chuckled. "Who's a good shadow?" "Want a treat?" she said, glancing at the beastly shadow, which growled in response. "Oh, up yours. I know where you live, and just for you, I'll get real lovey-dovey when I'm alone with Bluey," she teased, trying not to laugh. The shadow moved closer to Mina's face, causing the mutant to go pale. "They'll be here shortly, let's go," Izuku said, dissolving the shadow. Outside, the SWAT team was shocked at how pale the mutant looked. "He's fine, he's alive, isn't he?" Mina said as they walked past to a waiting armored paddy wagon. Izuku got into the passenger side and flipped a SWH that activated a special emitter in the back, deactivating mutant powers. Mina placed the mutant in the back of the wagon and took her seat. They drove for about 20 minutes in silence until the mutant began to GG, as if he were about to vomit. Suddenly, he screamed, and his eyes turned pure white. A different voice emerged from him, a female's. "What do you know, it worked. My, Pinky loving the disguise, and sweet Izu, how you've grown. Unfortunately, I can't speak for too long with this new power. I'm offering an opportunity to you and your little group of friends. Since your military can't find me, I'll give you information. I'll put it inside this one's head, you'll have to cut it open to get it out. Have fun, because I can't wait to continue my father's work. Bye-bye." With that, the mutant's eyes returned to normal, and he vomited. Mina peered through the bars. "Do we have a scalpel or drill on hand?" she asked, ensuring the mutant felt frightened. He began to shake as she continued. "Firstly, I'm guessing that was Haney. Secondly, don't worry, you won't die. We'll make sure of it." Her calm tone helped ease his shaking slightly. "Yes, that was Haney. She must have gotten a new power because I don't remember her being able to do that. Thank you for not choosing to kill me. I'll tell you what you need to know," he stammered, still frightened. They drove for another hour and a half before reaching the facility, where Izuku and Mina handed over the mutant, who called himself Carbon. Once they were dismissed, they headed to the cafeteria to eat and relax. "Based on what he told us, Haney has planned an unofficial get-together in that old part of Tulbeck City 2 days from now and wants the 6 of us to show up. Otherwise, she'll start attacking cities to draw us out," Mina said, sitting down to enjoy her food. Before Izuku could respond, General Theo approached them. "Do you know where your 4 friends are?" he asked, sipping his coffee. "Not entirely, sir, but I've kept in contact with them. Deku and I could leave sometime today or tomorrow, depending on where they are," Mina replied. Theo nodded. "All right then, I'll leave you to it. I hope for all our sakes that the other 4 are close by since Haney seems to be stepping out of hiding." "Good luck to both of you," he said before walking off. After eating, Mina rushed to her room to message the others in a group chat. A few minutes later, they each replied, saying they would be happy to meet up. Mina smiled at the message, thinking, "It's going to be fun, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Izuku and Mina borrowed a car and traveled for 3 hours to one of the mutant refuges Ijiro and Himiko had set up, a renovated mansion surrounded by a forest. Once they arrived, Izuku took a deep breath. Mina patted him on the back. "It's all right, Izu, they'll be glad to see you," she said before kissing him on the cheek and getting out of the car. As they went through the gate, they spotted Ijiro and Himiko in the distance, both having grown out their hair while helping a green-skinned child. The child looked at the approaching Izuku and Mina, and Ijiro and Himiko followed the child's gaze and waved. Ijiro then charged at super speed, tackling Izuku to the ground. "No way! It's really you! And you've got a tail? You've got a tail?" he yelled. Izuku couldn't speak as the air was driven out of his body, so he simply nodded. Himiko walked over and hugged Mina, then signed to Izuku, "I think he missed you," before gesturing for Ijiro to let Izuku get up. Ijiro pulled him up and a voice called out. It was Momo. "You're lucky, Ijiro, that you didn't break Izuku in half. But it's great to see you too," she said, walking over with Fumikage, hugging both Izuku and Mina. "The only thing that would make this better is if it weren't plagued by whatever Haney has in store for us." Fumikage added. Izuku suddenly felt tears welling up, prompting Mina and Himiko to hug him. "I know, it's just that being away for so long and now we're all back together," he said, overwhelmed with emotion. "It just feels great is all I can say," he said, wiping away his tears. Ijiro patted him on the back. "We understand. My good looks are inspiring," Ijiro exclaimed, prompting Himiko to roll her eyes but smile nonetheless. Mina pulled out the documents she was carrying and spoke up. "All right, let's get down to business. To defeat the Huns." Momo sang out, cutting Mina off. Mina raised an eyebrow. "We'll make a man out of Ijiro, and Fumikage yet, don't worry. But, I want to get this over with." "Sorry," she said, shrugging at Momo. Mina went over the documents, explaining what Carbon had said in person, especially the part about Haney wanting only the 6 of them involved as a form of payback. Otherwise, things would take a dramatic turn. They eventually decided that the other 4 would join Izuku and Mina at the facility they were staying at and spend today and the next day preparing. For what exactly, they weren't too sure, but they weren't going to give up. Later that day, the other 4 were shown the bodysuits and disguised chokers. Although they were hesitant to wear the chokers, during training, Izuku demonstrated his skin-changing power while Mina showcased her telekinesis. Once they finished training, they spent the rest of the day hanging out. The next day followed a similar pattern of training and relaxation. General Theo was surprised by how well the group of 6 worked together, considering offering the other 4 a place at the facility but ultimately deciding against it. A few of the other humans and mutants watched in awe as the 6 demonstrated their powers, the intensity of their sparring resembling actual combat. That night, they gathered again, though the atmosphere was quieter, with various scenarios playing out in their minds. Mina broke the awkward silence that had settled over them. "Well, this is it. Tomorrow could change the world for better or worse, so we've got to make the most of it. Izu and I will head off soon, but first, a group hug," she said, smiling at her boyfriend. They all stood up and embraced in a group hug that lasted for a few minutes. Mina and Izuku said goodnight to the others, and Mina held Izuku's hand as they began walking. They walked in silence for a little while until Mina spoke up. "Sorry to drag you off. You can go back if you want." Izuku shook his head. "No, it's fine," he replied. Mina smiled. "We'll be going to my room, since I want to be with you," she said, squeezing his hand. They soon arrived at Mina's room, and after closing the door behind them, she hugged Izuku tightly, and he embraced her back. They broke from the hug but continued to hold one another, looking into each other's eyes before sharing a kiss. "I love you," they said in unison. The following morning, Izuku woke up and took a shower, with Mina joining him shortly after. They got dressed and headed to the cafeteria for breakfast, where the other 4 soon joined them. No one wanted to speak. They were anxious and a little afraid, though nobody wanted to show it. General Theo broke the silence as he approached them, speaking softly. "I understand somewhat of the emotions you are all feeling, but the bottom line is this. The whole world is at stake. Haney is finally making a move and has seemingly chosen you 6 as her endgame. It should be simple. If you can't arrest her and whatever group she's bound to have with her, then eliminate them. That is all. Good luck, and thank you for giving everyone hope." He finished with a salute before walking away. They knew he was right. Their options were limited to either bringing them in or eliminating them. The 6 of them hung out for a while before training until lunchtime. Just then, Carbon, handcuffed and skirted by 2 guards, approached Izuku and the others, looking frightened. He took a few deep breaths before finally speaking. She wants to meet up. About an hour from now, he said, his voice trembling. The 6 of them thanked him and got ready, each wearing the special bodysuits and disguise chokers. They knew the location and that it usually took around 35 minutes to get there, so they wasted no time getting into an SUV, with Fumikage behind the wheel. Meanwhile, at a waterfront in Tulbeck City, Haney and 5 other mutants were waiting. Brachus, Skylar, Cassie, and Leo were with her, along with a new mutant named Archie. He stood 6 feet tall, had darkened skin and orange hair, and possessed the powers of metal control and creating earthquakes. The part of the waterfront they were at had buildings lining both sides, with old, run-down stores and one-story apartments. It was quiet enough that they heard a vehicle stop and doors shut. Haney smirked and said, "All right, it's obvious. If they die, they die. But the green-haired one, Izuku, leave him to me. His final breath will be by my hand." Archie looked at her and scoffed. "Are you even listening to yourself? Are you supposed to be the leader or something? Because really, you're just a brat with powers," he said, not wanting to be bossed around. Haney stepped closer to Archie and looked up at him. "How about this? Do not engage in a fight with Izuku, otherwise I might just go on a crime spree and make sure to point everything back at you. Or we can just eliminate you," she said calmly, causing Archie to take a step back. He was about to reply when Leo called out, "They're making their way over." Cassie and Leo went through an alleyway on the right, while Skylar and Archie went through an alleyway to the left, leaving Haney and Brachus in the middle. Mina and Fumikage followed Cassie and Leo, while Momo and Himiko followed Skylar and Archie, and Izuku and Ijiro stayed in the middle. Brachus moved forward, stopping a few meters in front of Izuku and Ijiro. Ijiro used his super speed to run along a wall, but Brachus shot an electricity bolt that caused Ijiro to trip. However, Ijiro fell into a portal, quickly re-emerging from another portal and hitting Brachus with a spinning heel kick before disappearing again through a new portal. Through the buildings on the right, Leo had distracted Fumikage while Cassie froze his legs, placing a hand on his back, which made him go blind. "Leo, keep a lookout for the pink one," Cassie instructed. Leo began to enlarge his body, reaching 12 feet tall, but an instant pain made his head pound, causing him to shrink back down to his normal size. Cassie stared at him, exasperated. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "I don't know. My head just started hurting," he yelled back. Fumikage grinned as his vision returned. Mina had sneakily put a collar on Cassie while she was incapacitated. Leo gasped in shock as Fumikage grew wings and Mina broke the ice around his legs. Fumikage flew at Leo, grabbing him by the throat and lifting him a few meters before dropping him. He then swooped down, hitting Leo in the stomach with a double foot stomp, knocking the air from his body and breaking 4 of his ribs. Fumikage placed a collar on him and injected him with a needle. "If there's bleeding, it'll stop. Your ribs will heal on their own," he said to a very annoyed Leo. With 2 mutants down, there were still 4 to go. On the left side, Archie caused a mini earthquake, making Momo, Himiko, and Skylar lose their footing. "Watch what you're doing." Skylar glared at Archie, who quickly caused another quake, sending Momo crashing against a wall. Archie approached Momo, looming over her. Meanwhile, Himiko noticed a small cut on her right palm from the chaos. She drew her blood and began forming a dagger, but Archie stomped again, triggering another earthquake that only affected Himiko. Skylar walked over and grabbed Himiko, wrapping her hands around her throat while heating her body. "You either choke or burn," she said, seemingly pleased with Archie's actions. Archie turned his attention back to Momo, who knew she had to make a split-second decision. Just as Archie went to kick her in the head, Momo quickly raised her hand and released a spike. The spike pierced through the bottom of Archie's foot, bursting out of his knee and continuing its path. Himiko felt herself heating up, and suddenly, the sound of a spike piercing through Skylar's head echoed in the air, causing her to let go and thud to the ground. Archie screamed in pain, but the spike remained lodged in his leg. Momo detached it from her hand, leaving it stuck in the ground, blood covering it as she stood up. "You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us," she declared angrily before placing a collar around his neck and removing the spike from his leg. Himiko slowly approached with a med kit to address his wound. They then heard Ijiro's scream. Breakus had grown frustrated and sparked lightning from his body, launching it at Ijiro, targeting the ground beneath him. Ijiro's feet burned as he fell. Breakus moved to approach Ijiro but was suddenly hit by a flying clothesline from Fumikic, sending him crashing into an alleyway. As he slid on his back, he found a blood dagger from Himiko pointed at his throat. "Alright, you win. I know when I'm looking death in the face," he admitted as Himiko forcefully placed a collar on him. All that remained was Haney. Izuku opened a portal and took Ijiro through it, emerging back through the same portal. However, as soon as he closed it, he found a bubble around his head. Haney had raised a hand towards him. "Another power of mine. I can control the air, suffocating you, so be glad you exist. Enjoy your last breath," Haney hissed. Izuku felt pressure building in his head but managed to smile. "I'm surprised you didn't notice how short I've gotten," he replied, feeling blood trickle from his ears. Haney tilted her head, realizing what Izuku meant. He then touched the choker, revealing Mina. Another Mina emerged from the ground right next to Haney. "Clones are cool, huh?" she said as her clone, trapped in a bubble, dissolved. Izuku then emerged from a portal, blue flames raging from his right hand. "It's over. This will be the end," he declared. Haney gritted her teeth and slowly nodded. "There will be a time when it's not over, I'm sure of it," she replied, putting her hands behind her back. Izuku placed a collar around her neck. It was finally over, they had won. Haney and the other 4 surviving mutants were separated and placed under constant watch, with no other mutants daring to plan anything. The world was once again at peace. 3 years later, Izuku had something special planned and just needed the right place, which he already had in mind, the hill where he first saw fireworks and realized Mina's beauty. It was a special occasion for the 6 of them, marking the day they all first met. They planned to watch the sunset on the hill. Izuku and Mina stood together, arms around each other, while the others smiled nearby. Mina rested her head on his shoulder. "Hey, Izu, I've been thinking. We should visit Mr. Nakajima sometime. He might be amazed at how you control the color of your skin," she suggested. Izuku nodded. "I've been thinking too about us," he replied. Mina blushed slightly. "Oh, do tell," she encouraged, a smile on her face. Izuku chuckled. "Well, you know it's us, so that's a recipe for disaster, but it's not all that bad. There's one thing I'm sure about though." He paused, opening a small portal with his right hand to retrieve a small box. Kneeling down, he opened the box to reveal a ring with a pink and emerald gemstone in the center. Mina looked down, her eyes widening as tears formed. She began to fan herself with her hands. "See, continue, you idiot," she urged, giggling softly. Izuku smiled at Mina, his heart full of emotion. "I'm 100% certain that I love you and that I want to spend my life with you, no matter what. So, Mina Ishido, will you marry me?" Tears began to form in his eyes as he awaited her response. Mina's own tears streamed down her face as she exclaimed, "Yes, Izuku Dio." In her excitement, she tackled him to the ground, sharing a long, heartfelt kiss that sealed their promise to each other.